So, Ukraine just said that there are 50,000 dead Russians. And in this episode today, it is Tuesday, September 6th. I want to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it in context with all the daily events. If you aren't familiar with me, my name is Darren Gertis. I cover daily events every day in the war in Ukraine. Please subscribe if you really care about what's going on there, and we'll get into it in just a moment. Okay, I'm going to start here with the IAEA publishes their report on Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. There's an urgent need for interim measures to prevent a nuclear accident from physical damage caused by military need, says the report. It's pretty bland, and the Institute for the Study of War talked about it today. The International Economic Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA September report on the situation was kind of bland. They described numerous ways in which Russia occupation authorities and Russian military are jeopardizing the safe operation of the plant. However, the report does not attempt to determine which party is responsible for the shelling. Of course, it's the UN. They're trying to be like, hey, we're just trying to be fair. Okay, the damaged facilities and repeatedly calls on all relevant parties to take measures to improve the situation. The neutrality of the language that can overshadow the extremely clear articulation of Russian activities. The IAEA report is thus coded condemnation of Russian moves that have created and are perpetuating the danger of nuclear disaster. The report specifically notes that Ukraine reported to the IAEA that Russian forces had positioned military equipment in two turbines and other various facilities. The IAEA's inspection team was told that the on-site emergency center was not accessible to the plant staff for emergency response, and it was occupied by the military authority. Well, that's bad. And okay, so you're getting the picture here. You're getting this very bland report. It does show what's going on, but okay. Now this in light of surveillance or satellite geolocating finding yesterday or the day before artillery on the plant site. Okay, within 1 kilometer of a turbine, there was artillery there. This in light of the Amnesty International report that made all this hay about Russians in or Ukrainians in unoccupied schools and how bad they are, but nothing to say here. Okay. Zelenskyy this morning was talking about like with all this, where we almost forget that there was missile strikes going on across the country. In the morning, the apartment building in the central part of the city was destroyed in Kharkiv. The administrative building was damaged. There was fire at an oil depot in Kiev, and there will be retribution and punishment. Like we're forgetting that missiles are still striking all over the country. A little bit more from the ISW. Ukrainian forces conducted a counterattack in Kharkiv Oblast near Balikivka, likely drove the Russian forces to the left bank north side of the Seversky Donets River. Yeah, they're actually making some progress. Russian forces are likely no longer maintain their previous positions there, and Russian forces have likely abandoned this area in late August. So they're making progress, and we almost forget about the missile strikes and the progress in light of things like nuclear meltdown. Okay, but they are making progress. Another Russian imposed official in an occupied area attacked. I talked about this when I saw the first car bomb a few months ago, and I thought, you occupy them, you can't, Russia cannot hold the force. Okay, so to occupy a nation, you have to have something like 1 to 40, like one occupier for every 40 residents. I did the math, and it was like 1 to 240 or 290 or something like that Russia actually has. Russia cannot hold and occupy. They can declare a sham election. They can actually, say, see, we voted and it's really Russia now, but they will not be able to hold this, and this is a sign of what will come if they do. So let's get into this article here, and you see that there was a car bomb, and there was more events over recent days. Russian imposed administration of the city Bernetsk in Ukraine's southeastern region of Zaporizhia said on September 6th that the city's commandant was his car exploded. He was seriously injured. Last week, there was a lawmaker who joined the Russian imposed government was found dead. Days before that, there was another one, and the Moscow appointed mayor of the town of Mikhailivka, Ivan Sisko, was killed by a car bomb. Several other similar incidents have happened, and it's going to continue. This is what's going to happen. Um, they're not taking this occupation line down. Okay, next article. So, inauthentic anti-Ukrainian hashtags are trending in Poland. So there's Russian bots, and I've actually communicated with the professor at Clemson, who is like the authority on this kind of thing. Russian bots are spreading across Poland with the hashtags "Stop Ukraine," Ukrainization of Poland. Now, the Poles have been awesome to Ukraine. The Poles have committed more money than any other country other than the United States. They've taken Ukrainians in. I mean, it's just amazing. But there's this astroturf kind of movement. That's fake grassroots movement. So they've had nearly 50,000 retweets. Far-right politicians have claimed that hashtags demonstrate widespread opposition to Ukrainian refugees. Of course, highly active Twitter accounts, including some that behave like bots, have promoted the hashtags by tweeting up to 200 times a day. Normal people don't do that, so that's not what's actually going on. It's called astroturfing. I came across this term years ago, and it's the idea of a small number of people trying to reinforce a movement to pretend as if it has grassroots support where it really doesn't. And then what's actually going on, a recent survey by the Polish Economic Institute found that 77% of citizens have supported Ukrainian refugees in some way or another since the war began. Like I said, Poland has been awesome to Ukraine. The Baltic states have been in their corner like three little pit bulls on their side. And they Poland and the Baltics remember what it was like to live under Soviet occupation. Okay, let's turn our attention to RT. This is Russia Today, and let's hear what they have to say. Moscow is accusing the West of breaking a grain deal pledge. Oh no, Western countries have not fulfilled their promise to lift sanctions on Russian grain and fertilizers. Well, they were supposed to, and they ought to do that. But rather than worry about this and complain that the West is bad, Sergei Lavrov this guy is just ridiculous with some of these things. Rather than complain about that, how about dealing with Oklavina? Remember this? The families of the prisoners of war in Mariupol Ostoval plant call on the United Nations to apply effective and urgent mechanisms to investigate the terrorist attack. Oklavina, remember when the prisoner of war camp blew up 40 freaking days ago? Like, and Russia was calling on it. We call on the UN to come inspect. You control it. You could let them in, but they haven't. So they're complaining about this, about the breaking the grain deal, which, by the way, they ought to allow the food to go out because, I mean, this is like, you don't want people to starve in Africa because of what's going on here. They ought to allow the food to go out, but you're complaining about that when what? So, okay. RT again, Roger Waters, and I saw this on Facebook and I commented on it. It's shameful. Roger Waters writes a letter to the wife of Zelenskyy, and he says, you know, you got to stop the slaughter, and you don't stop the slaughter by throwing fuel in the form of armaments into a firefight. Has never worked to shorten a war in the past, and it won't work now. Actually, he's wrong. You can overwhelm the enemy and cause them to stop. And that's what they're going to have to do. That's the only way that they're going to stop it. Might it not be better to demand the implementation of your husband's election promises and put an end to this deadly war? He wrote, offering a reminder that Zelenskyy campaigned on a pledge to end the war in Donbass. And what he was talking about was the Minsk deal. But he forgets completely about the Budapest Memorandum. So the Minsk deal was this deal brokered to create a ceasefire that would, allow free and fair elections. Neither side actually wanted this, and they just kind of kept the status quo, but it stopped the hot fighting. But what he's totally forgetting about is the Budapest Memorandum. The United States, England, and Russia were the guarantors of Ukraine's border if they gave up their nukes. So when you deal with the Budapest Memorandum, we'll deal with the Minsk deal. Okay. Waters' latest remarks echo his August interview with CNN, in which England-born rock legend implied that U.S. President Joe Biden is a war criminal because he's fueling the Ukraine conflict while refusing to encourage Kyiv to negotiate peace. Really, Biden's the problem here? Okay. So kids don't do drugs because that's what happens to your brain. All right, next. So I want to end on this note, and I've been building up to it all along. The Ukrainians now claim that over 50,000 Russian invaders are killed in Ukraine. Now, I think that number's a little bit high, but here's what the numbers are just each day, right? And here's the actual Facebook from which it came 50,000 liquidated personnel. How did they get to that? I don't know that this number is accurate, but I'm not in a position to be able to judge. What I can tell you is that this number, I'm sure, will include not just Russians, but any Russian contractors, any DPR or LPR fighters working with Russia, any Chechens working with Russia, anybody fighting out contractors, Wagner Group, anybody fighting on that side. I still think the number is a little bit high. The latest number that I saw from the UK just a couple days ago was north of 25,000 killed. So it's about half of what the Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians might have ground truth. I just don't know. The US said about 20,000 about a month before that. So let's say it's maybe 30,000 because we're in a hotter war. I don't know what it is. I think that that's a little bit high. Now, that being said, I think the trajectory is on the right path. I mean, it keeps going up, and that's Ukraine is only talking about 50,000 killed. There would be a multiple of about 3 times for wounded after you have killed. So that would mean that there's 200,000 Russian and Russian collaborators, and I think that that's a little high. However, I think if you take, say, let's say 30, let's use a higher estimate from you than UK has, 30, and then another 90,000. I think you might be in the right ballpark of what's actually happened. Okay, that's all that I have for today. Thank you, and I will see you tomorrow. Please subscribe if you're still watching.